Hey, what's up guys? BJ Dell back with an all-new weekly art challenge review video. Last week's word was Greek mythology, so let's see what you guys came up with. Alright guys, let's jump into the video. This week's word was Greek mythology, so let's see what you guys came up with. First one this week is Don, and Don did Hercules and the Bull. I think this one's a really strong design. I like the overall just character design of the two figures in this, being Hercules and the Bull. I think Hercules here, you've got the nice cartoon look with the bulging muscles. I think really defines Hercules, and everybody can really kind of relate to the character. They know that that's what it's supposed to look like. Same thing with the Bull. I just like the overall expression of the bull, the overall shape and the hulking figure of him, and then the round circle around the outside that frames the overall package. I think that it works really well to kind of frame the two characters in. A couple things that I noticed here that I would probably change. The first being these kind of skin folds coming down here. The wrinkles, I guess it could work if they were done in perspective with the rest. I assume they're supposed to be wrinkles. To me, they kind of reminds me of somebody that's lost a lot of weight and kind of has the skin hanging, which I'm not sure if that was the look you were going for, but it looks like too it's part of the neck. The only problem here is if we look at the overall perspective that you used with the bull, doing the center lines here, this is the center line of the head, and then the body, the center line pretty much follows that shadow you've got going on there, and then down to here. So you'll see this is really set way off to this right hand side. If this was in full perspective, you would actually have the folds come over here a little bit more so that they're on both sides. Now there's going to be more over here because of the perspective, but right now you don't have any, and it stops like right in here to where it should actually pull up into this area. So that's one possibility. The other one too that I might go with is getting rid of those totally. If this is, the neck part coming down, you can kind of have the neck buried on a character this big. It kind of reads that the character's even, bigger than what he first appears like with the muscles. So if you come over here and do just huge hulking muscles like you've got on the Hercules character himself, and then you can have the neck coming out here too, that would look kind of cool. And then have the big burly chest coming down and around, and then have the abdomen in here. I think that might work as well. You can even do nipples with little rings in them and do a ring up here. I don't know. But anyways, that is kind of my take there. I would change one of those two things. I think it would read a little bit better than just those folds of skin coming down there with the wrinkles. But fantastic job, Don. Love seeing your work this week. Next up is Jessica, and Jessica's got the Kraken, and once again a nice circle frame design here. I think it works really well. I like the overlap of you've got the banner down here overlapping, as well as the tentacles coming out here and overlapping, and then finally finishing up here with the head coming out of the top. I like the overall design and the setup and where you've got the placement of everything. The one thing here that I would probably focus on a little bit is you've got a really nice shaded banner down here. It has that very traditional tattoo Sailor Jerry coloring to it and the shading to it, and then you've got the backs of these tentacles. These are shaded, but when you get to the kind of main subject matter, you've got the body of the Kraken. It just looks super plain. There's not really a lot going on color or shadow wise. It's just pretty bland. So I would probably go in and use the same technique that you used on the other parts and just add some shadows in here. Maybe throw some in underneath the eyes here to make those pop a little bit. Let's pull this up. And I wouldn't go too heavy. I would just go subtle with these, and then same thing here with these coming down and around, having some shadows down there, and then especially up here in the top, you could probably pull some shadows in here just to kind of build that out and give it a little bit more substance to it, just because you did such a great job with the shadows throughout. Like I said, it just looks a little bland with it just being that one solid color. But other than that, absolutely fantastic job, Jessica. So thanks for sharing that with us this week. Next up is Scott, and Scott's got Medusa, and I love this one. It's got a lot of energy, a lot of stuff going on. Color choice is absolutely fantastic. I think everything really pops. I like the mix of the greens, the purples, the blues, and the yellows, and it just all works really well together. The face is really, really good. The same thing with the faces of the snakes. I like that they don't all have the exact same face. So you've got this one who's kind of got the goofy cartoon look, and these a little bit more serious. This guy's kind of got some bulging cartoon eyes too. So I like that they all kind of have their own personalities. I might have taken that a step further and, you know, made these even more different than one another and kind of gone and given them their own backstory in my head almost to make them totally different. But fantastic job with doing those. The one thing that I would probably change here is as the body comes down and around, you've got the thigh here going into the knee, into the leg here, and then coming back. So this looks very human-esque here, to where I think when your mind just kind of peers at it first, you almost expect this to be a foot back here, and it looks almost just like a misshapen foot. I know it's going into the tail here, but to kind of alleviate that problem, I would probably go in here and pull this tail up a little bit here. And then from there, what I would do is build up on what you've already got and kind of make this the coils here, to where she's got like a stack of the coils. I think that would look, you know, kind of really interesting, having these build up here so that it looks a little bit more snake-like. I would keep this away from here and leave that gap so it doesn't get too close. But that way it's definitely discernible that you've got her coiled up and this snake tail coming out, and it wouldn't look so much just kind of like a foot crammed in there. So the other thing here that I would do is the way that the arm is coming down here, it just kind of shows that it's coming down and then kind of stops, and you don't really see where it goes. I know with here, you could say it's kind of hiding behind this one, but the way that her hands are, it's going to be almost impossible for a character to totally obscure that arm and the hands exactly in the same position. So it looks like it's kind of missing that arm. So a couple of ways around that, if you went ahead and built up her fingers here and had it to where she was kind of resting her hand, you know, along this arm, that would be a possibility. The other thing too you could do is kind of going with those personalities of the snakes. Let's say this guy was not happy being attached to her head anymore and wanted to escape, so you could have her arm coming out here and kind of have her hands wrapped around his neck, and then you could almost have his eyes kind of popping out with his tongue coming out of his mouth, kind of like she's choking him, telling him to get back over here. That might be kind of cute too, and add a little bit more humor in there. But those are just a couple of the things I saw, but overall, fantastic job. So thanks so much for sharing, Scott. Next up is Christine, and Christine has a griffin this week, and I love seeing Christine stuff every week. It's just absolutely fantastic, and the way that she uses lines to build up just a really gorgeous texture and quality to the work. And as you can see, the black does the primary work in the background, so you've got some black in here, but then she just builds up this texture and the fur and the feathers through use of just different colored lines. So there's basically probably 3 different color lines in here plus the black, and it just does a really fantastic job of making this a believable character with you know, a lot of volume and a lot of space it's taking up in this 2-dimensional canvas. And I think it is just gorgeous, and I love it a lot. So thanks so much for sharing, Christine. Love seeing your stuff every week as well. Next up is Mark, and Mark did a Cyclops for Greek Mythology Week, and this one really kind of spoke to me because I like just the rough style of it. I know a lot of my videos I talk about, you know, making the perfect line and how to get smooth lines with Procreate and different tips and tricks and techniques that you can use, and you know, that's my personal preference and my work. I like, you know, a nice smooth line, but art doesn't always have to be that way. Sometimes it can be messy, it can be rough, and this is one of those examples where I think it works really well. Mark's design has a really kind of concept sketch to it, but it does have that finished feel as well, just because everything's colored and shadowed, and I like it. It's very dynamic, and the use of the lines just makes it feel very alive. So I like to, when you went in to do the shadows on here, just using this really thin line here to break up between the light and the dark on the mountains here. I think that's a really wise decision. Plus keeping with that kind of messy feel, you know, not going 100% perfect, and you've got some overlap here of the darker color onto the lighter. And I think that's fantastic too, just because it shows that this is supposed to have that really loose feel to it, and I think you kind of knock that out of the park. As far as the Cyclops itself goes, I love the overall facial expression and the proportions used there. The body works really great. The club and the hands are just fantastic, and especially this one here, you know, kind of gripped in a fist itself. I think everything works just really well. So fantastic job, Mark. Keep up the good work. Love seeing your stuff. And last but not least is Ken, and Ken did an adorable griffin this week. Ken actually had a few different ones, but this is the one that I picked, and same thing as some of the previous ones too. Used the round frame on here, the circle frame, to kind of frame in the griffin design. And the griffin itself is super, super cute and adorable. I like too that Ken used the overlap as well. I'm a big fan of using those circle frames or square frames and framing everything in, but I like to have the main character design kind of stretch out of there and break that frame if possible. And I think using the tail to do that was a really wise decision here. Works really well with the point of the tail down here. I think honestly you could even probably done it with the wings too if you brought the wings up a little bit further. But overall, just really fantastic. The one thing that I try to not do when I use circle frames is I try to keep the main subject matter and some of the other stuff off to the sides not butting up against the frame. So you can see here you've got the flower butted right up against the frame. I would probably pull that in just a little bit. And the same thing with this tail. And especially here, it's really hard when you're working with a circle frame and then also something with curved lines around. When you get to that touching part, you've got these, you know, little almost like slivers that pop up, and it just looks a little jarring and a little weird. So I try to keep anything like that from touching so you don't have those problems. The other thing too that I would do here is pay attention when you're using frames and have an inner circle and an outer circle to make sure that the proportions between the two line up all the way around. So you'll see down here we've got a pretty wide space in between the inner and outer circle, whereas up here it goes really, really narrow. So you don't have a uniform circle and a uniform space between those two. So this is something that's fairly easy to do in Procreate and take care of. If you go in, let's start a new layer here. If you go in to your actions here and go to let's see, drawing guide, turn this on, and it'll break down the canvas into a grid. And then let's go ahead and just draw a circle in here. And the main thing that we're going to do with the circle is make sure that it's touching and we've got it in center line. So we want this, we've got the little circles, dots on the 4 different sides. We want to get those lined up right here on these center lines, so it touches the same spot, and we know that's pretty much perfect right there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and duplicate this. So it's going to be the inside of our circle. We'll go up to our transform here, and we're going to go to a uniform, and we're going to go with magnetic. And then let's just go ahead and drop this in. And then what we're going to do is make sure, once we have a decent size, whatever size we want that gap to be, we're going to make sure that these dots line up with those same lines, and as long as they do, it will be centered. And you can see now we've got the perfect spacing on all areas of that circle. So that's a quick and easy way to make sure that you get those exactly where they're supposed to be and that you don't have the problems like this here. One last thing too that I would do, I'm just a personal fan of, I don't like eyes being totally colored in. I do like having the irises, so if you threw in some white here and then went in and, you know, did the iris here with the line, and that way you could color them in, I think it reads just a little bit better than just having the solid color for the eyes. But other than that, I think it's fantastic, and I love seeing your stuff week in and week out, Ken, so thanks for sharing. And those are the designs this week for Greek mythology. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. As always, thank you for watching, and thanks to everyone that participated in this week's challenge. If you liked today's video too, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already, Hit the bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. And if you want to possibly see your artwork featured in these upcoming videos, hop on over to Facebook after this video. Join Keep Creating, the Learn, Draw, Share art community. The link is in the description below. Show off your work based on these challenges, or just honestly any work that you want to show. We want to see it, so join the group and start sharing. And also, if one word a week is not enough for you, you want to draw every day, the Keep Creating 365 Days of Drawing Prompts. This is a sketchbook that I created that is available for purchase on Amazon. It gives you a different word for every single day of the year. Hop on over and grab that. There's a lot of fun prompts in there, so you can share those in the group as well. So last week's word was Greek mythology, and this week I want as many people to participate in this one as possible. So we'll go with something super easy, and we're going to do cat for this week's word. So I want to see what you guys can do. Definitely hop on over and draw your cats and share them with the group. As for me, I can be found online, bjdell.com, as well as on Instagram and Twitter at bjdell. So until next time, keep creating.